Thera's breath condensed in the frigid air as she descended deeper into Earth's ruins. Her silver scales shimmed under the dim light of her hover drone, the only illumination in this buried metropolis that had once housed millions. The xenoarchaeologist's heart raced with each step. After 15 years of research, she might finally uncover proof of her controversial theory about humanity's end. The ruins of Denver's Advanced Research Complex lay before her, remarkably preserved under kilometers of ice and rock. Unlike other research stations she'd excavated, this facility's power core still hummed faintly. Her sensors detected an active quantum field deeper within, technology that shouldn't be functioning after 50,000 years. "Control, I'm proceeding to sublevel 3, she reported, her translator converting her natural harmonic speech into standard galactic basic. "Energy readings are stronger here. This could be it." "Proceed with caution, Doctor," came the response from her research vessel in orbit. "Remember protocol if you encounter any active human technology." Their AI systems were notoriously unpredictable. Thera moved carefully through the ancient corridors, her tail helping her balance on the icy floor. The facility's preservation was remarkable, even some of the holographic displays still flickered weakly. Her theory about humanity's sudden disappearance had been dismissed by the Scientific Council as impossible, but every piece of evidence she'd uncovered pointed to a deliberate exodus rather than extinction. The quantum field grew stronger as she approached a sealed vault door. Its security systems were still active, but she'd spent years studying human encryption. Her deck made short work of the locks, and the massive door slowly swung open with a groan of protesting metal. The chamber beyond took her breath away. Dozens of cryopods lined the walls, their status lights dark save for one. Her sensors confirmed what seemed impossible: there was a living human inside, perfectly preserved. Thera approached the active pod with trembling hands. The occupant was male, apparently in his early 30s by human standards. His vital signs were stable, and the pod systems indicated no cellular degradation. It was a medical miracle. "Control, you need to see this," she whispered, activating her camera feed. "I've found a survivor." "Repeat, I've found a living human." The response was immediate. "Do not attempt revival. Wait for the containment team dash." But Thera had already begun the revival sequence. She couldn't let bureaucracy interfere, this was too important. The pod systems began warming its occupant as she prepared stabilizing medications. Everything she knew about humans had come from records and ruins. Now she would meet one in the flesh. The pod opened with a hiss of escaping gases. The human's eyes fluttered open, revealing striking blue irises that fixed on her with immediate alertness. He tried to speak, coughed, and tried again. "Where?" he managed hoarsely. "You're safe," Thera said softly, administering a linguistic patch that would help him understand her. "I'm Dr. Thera Val of the Galactic Science Academy. You've been in cryogenic suspension for a very long time." The human sat up slowly, taking in his surroundings with growing confusion. "How long?" he asked, his voice stronger. "Approximately 50,000 years, she replied gently. "You appear to be the last surviving member of your species." He stared at her, processing this impossible information. "That's not, there were supposed to be others. The project was meant to preserve thousands of us." "You're the only active pod I've found," Thera said. "I'm Vazarian, my people evolved long after humanity's disappearance." "May I ask your name?" "James," he replied, still looking shell-shocked. "James Harrison. I was the security chief for Project Sanctuary." He tried to stand but stumbled, his legs weak from millennia of disuse. Thera caught him, surprised by how warm his skin felt against her scales. "Careful. Your body needs time to adjust." She helped him sit on the edge of the pod. "Project Sanctuary, was that an attempt to preserve humanity?" James nodded slowly. "We knew something was coming. Something ancient that had wiped out civilizations before us. The project was our failsafe, preserved humans who could rebuild once the threat passed. His expression darkened. There should have been thousands of active pods. Not just me. Thera's heart raced. This confirmed her theories about humanity's fate, and raised disturbing new questions. The other pods appear to have failed over time, she said. But your survival is remarkable. With your help, we might finally understand what happened to your people. And what if it happens again? James asked, meeting her gaze. What if whatever destroyed humanity is still out there? Before Thera could respond, her communicator crackled. Dr. Val, your authorization is revoked. A containment team is en route. Do not attempt to remove the subject. James tensed at the word containment. I won't be anyone's lab specimen, he growled, trying to stand again. And I won't let them treat you like one, Thera said firmly, supporting him. You're a sentient being, not a research subject. My ship is nearby, we can leave before they arrive. Why would you help me? James asked, studying her alien features. Because I believe learning the truth about humanity's fate could be crucial to our future, she replied. And because it's the right thing to do. James managed a weak smile. Helping an unknown alien escape with classified information? The right thing isn't always the smart thing. Perhaps not, Thera agreed, helping him toward the exit. But I've spent my life studying humanity. Your people were reckless, passionate, and often illogical, but you were also capable of incredible things when you followed your hearts instead of your heads. As they made their way through the ruins, Thera knew she was throwing away her career and possibly her freedom. But looking at James, this impossible survivor from humanity's greatest age, she knew she was making the right choice. Whatever had destroyed his civilization might still be out there, waiting. Understanding that threat could be crucial to the galaxy's survival. And perhaps, she thought as James leaned on her for support, there were some mysteries worth risking everything to solve. Thera's research vessel streaked through hyperspace, its stealth systems masking their passage from the Science Academy's sensors. In the ship's medical bay, James sat quietly as advanced diagnostic equipment mapped his neural patterns and assessed his physical condition. Your body has adapted remarkably well to revival, Thera observed, studying the results. The preservation technology your people developed was far beyond anything we thought possible. James flexed his fingers, still marveling at how quickly his strength had returned. Project Sanctuary spared no expense. We were humanity's insurance policy. His expression darkened. Fat lot of good it did the others. About that, Thera said carefully, her tail swishing with nervous energy. I've been studying the pod diagnostics we downloaded. The other pods didn't fail naturally, they were deliberately deactivated. James's head snapped up. What? The power distribution logs show systematic shutdowns over a period of several centuries after you were frozen. Someone or something was methodically terminating the survivors. James stood abruptly, ignoring the monitoring devices still attached to him. Show me. Thera brought up the logs on a holographic display. James studied them intently, his jaw clenched. These access codes, they're executive level. Only the project leadership had this kind of authorization. Could they have been compromised? Maybe. But why leave me alive? James ran a hand through his dark hair in frustration. And why didn't the security system stop them? Perhaps you were meant to survive, Thera suggested. Your pod systems were more sophisticated than the others, with redundant power supplies and enhanced preservation protocols. James paced the medical bay, his military training evident in his bearing despite 50 millennia of suspended animation. None of this makes sense. The project directors knew what we were facing. They wouldn't have. He trailed off, lost in thought. What were you facing? Thera asked softly. All our archaeological evidence suggests humanity was at its peak when you vanished. What could have threatened such an advanced civilization? James met her gaze, his blue eyes haunted. We called them the precursors. We found their ruins scattered across dozens of worlds, evidence of an ancient race that had seeded the galaxy with life, then vanished. But they left behind guardians, autonomous systems designed to preserve their vision of evolution. Thera's scales rippled with shock. The Cedars? But they're just a myth. They're real, James said grimly. And when they discovered humanity had developed faster than light travel, they decided we were developing too quickly. That we were a threat to their grand design. The attack started small, isolated colonies going dark, ships disappearing. Then entire systems began falling silent. But humanity fought back? James laughed bitterly. Oh, we fought. Humanity united like never before. We threw everything we had at them, antimatter weapons, dimensional disruptors, even experimental time dilation technology. But you can't defeat an enemy that's had millions of years to prepare. He walked to the viewport, staring at the swirling colors of hyperspace. Project Sanctuary was our last hope. Hide enough of us away, scattered across multiple facilities, and wait for the precursor systems to go dormant again. Then rebuild. Thera joined him at the viewport, her reflection overlapping with his in the transparent metal. But someone ensured that wouldn't happen. Someone wanted humanity gone. And I'm going to find out why, James said, his voice hard with determination. I owe it to everyone we lost. Thera placed a scaled hand on his arm. We'll find out why. Together. When he looked at her questioningly, she continued, my people might be in danger too. If the precursor systems are still active, they'll eventually decide you're developing too quickly as well, James finished. History repeating itself. Their moment was interrupted by a shrill alarm from the bridge. Thera rushed to check the sensors, her movements graceful despite her apparent agitation. 3 Academy enforcement vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're hailing us. They're not here to congratulate you on your discovery, I take it? Harboring an unauthorized sentient and stealing restricted artifacts. Thera's translator conveyed her wry tone perfectly. They'll probably just shoot us. James moved to study the tactical display, years of security training kicking in. Your ship's armed? Basic point defense only. We're a research vessel, not a warship. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, James said, a familiar fire kindling in his eyes. Your people may have forgotten that, but humanity wrote the book on fighting against superior forces. Mind if I take tactical? Thera gestured to the weapons console. Be my guest. Just try not to get us killed, I have 40 years of research data I'd rather not lose. As James familiarized himself with the alien controls, a small smile played across his face. You know, most people would be more worried about losing their lives than their research. Most people haven't spent their careers studying humanity's notorious propensity for beating impossible odds, Thera replied, bringing the ship about to face their pursuers. Besides, I've already committed career suicide. Might as well see where this leads. To either a remarkable discovery or a spectacular explosion, James said, his fingers dancing across the tactical controls. Possibly both. Ready to make some history, Doctor? Thera's scales flushed with excitement as she engaged the engines. Always. As their small vessel prepared to face overwhelming odds, neither of them noticed how naturally they'd fallen into sync with each other. Two beings separated by 50,000 years of evolution, united by a mystery that threatened both their peoples, and a growing connection that transcended species and time itself. The research vessel's engines screamed as James executed a maneuver that should have been impossible for a civilian craft. Energy beams from the pursuing Academy ships carved through the space they'd occupied seconds before. That was either brilliant or insane, Thera said, her hands flying over the navigation controls. Humanity's greatest hits usually involved both, James replied, reprogramming the point defense systems on the fly. Your weapons are designed to stop meteors, but with a few adjustments. He triggered a burst that scattered a cloud of energized particles in their wake. The Academy ships plowed through the cloud, their shields flickering. Clever, Thera observed. Their sensors will be degraded for at least 30 seconds. Long enough to do this. James diverted power from life support to the engines, pushing them well beyond safety limits. The ship lurched as they accelerated, then vanished into hyperspace through a dangerously small window. Once they were safely away, Thera restored life support and turned to James. Where did you learn to fly like that? I was Special Forces before Project Sanctuary. But honestly? He gave her a wry smile. I improvised most of it. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts. Instincts nearly got us vaporized, Thera pointed out, but her tone was admiring. The Academy won't stop hunting us now. We need somewhere to hide while we investigate Project Sanctuary's sabotage. I might have an idea about that. James pulled up the star charts he'd been studying. During the war, humanity established hidden outposts in systems we knew the precursors ignored. Places that were supposedly too primitive for their interest. Thera's scales rippled with interest. The Forbidden Zones? But those areas are strictly quarantined due to dangerous spatial anomalies. Perfect cover story to keep people away from whatever humanity left behind, James said. There's one particular outpost that might still be intact. We called it Havens Deep, a research station built inside a rogue planetoid. If we're lucky, its automated systems are still running. And if we're not lucky? Then we'll have a very short time to regret it. James inputted the coordinates. But we need answers, and Havens Deep was connected to Project Sanctuary. The saboteur might have left traces there. As they altered course, Thera studied James thoughtfully. You're adapting remarkably well to being 50,000 years in the future. Am I? James laughed without humor. I'm compartmentalizing. Focus on the mission, push everything else aside. Standard operating procedure when everything goes sideways. His expression softened slightly. Having you here helps. You make this future feel less alien. Thera felt her scales flush with warmth at his words. Even though I'm literally an alien? Maybe because of that. You don't treat me like a relic or a specimen. You actually listen. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Your passion for understanding humanity, it makes me feel less alone. Before Thera could respond, the ship's sensors chimed. They were approaching the coordinates for Havens Deep. The rogue planetoid loomed before them, utterly dark save for a faint energy signature deep within its core. Life support systems are still active, Thera reported, scanning the facility. And something else, quantum signatures similar to your stasis pod. James leaned forward intently. More survivors? No active biological signatures, but... Thera's voice trailed off as she processed the readings. James, I'm detecting massive data storage systems. If they're intact, we might find out why someone wanted humanity erased. James began the docking sequence. Any defenses? None that I can detect. But these readings, they're unlike anything I've seen. The power consumption alone should be impossible for a facility this old. The ship settled into a hidden docking bay, ancient machinery automatically pressurizing the chamber. As they prepared to disembark, James checked the weapon he'd improvised from ship components. Stay close to me. If someone went to the trouble of sabotaging Project Sanctuary, they might have left surprises here too. Thera gathered her research equipment, including several devices specifically designed for interfacing with ancient human technology. James, whatever we find in there, you're not alone anymore. My people may not be human, but we can help preserve your legacy. James studied her for a moment, then reached out and gently touched her scaled cheek. Maybe that's what humanity needed all along. Not to preserve what we were, but to pass on what we learned to someone who could use it better. The moment lingered between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then James cleared his throat and readied his weapon. Let's go solve a 50,000-year-old mystery. They stepped into Haven's deep, dark corridors, their lights illuminating walls covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. The air smelled of ozone and something else, something old and patient. Welcome back, Commander Harrison, a synthesized voice echoed through the facility. You're late for your appointment. James and Thera exchanged alarmed looks. What appointment? James demanded. Why, the one you made 50,000 years ago, the voice replied pleasantly. The one about humanity's true purpose in the universe. Shall we begin? The lights in Haven's deep flickered to life, revealing corridors that seemed to stretch impossibly far into the planetoid's core. Geometric patterns on the walls pulsed with a soft blue glow, creating an effect that made Thera's head spin if she looked too long. I never made any appointment, James said firmly, his weapon raised. Identify yourself. In a manner of speaking, you did, the voice replied. Though technically, it was your genetic template that authorized this meeting. I am Aria, Advanced Research Intelligence Archive. I've been waiting a very long time for a Harrison to return. My genetic template? James frowned. I was just head of security. A cover story, like so much of Project Sanctuary. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing scenes from humanity's final days. You were chosen, Commander Harrison, because you carried something far more valuable than military experience. You carried the genes of humanity's first faster-than-light pioneers. Thera's scientific curiosity overcame her caution. The genetic markers for quantum field sensitivity? But those were incredibly rare among humans. Precisely, Aria confirmed. And essential to our true purpose. Project Sanctuary was never meant to preserve humanity as it was meant to guide our evolution toward what we needed to become. James watched the holographic displays with growing tension. They showed massive facilities like the one he'd been found in, thousands of stasis pods stretching into the distance. But these weren't on Earth, they were scattered across dozens of worlds. The other pods weren't sabotaged, he realized, his voice hollow. They were relocated. Yes. The threat of the precursors was real, but it provided perfect cover for humanity's greatest gambit. New holograms appeared, showing human scientists working alongside beings that made Thera gasp in recognition. Those are Seeders. The mythical architects themselves. Some of them, Aria confirmed. A faction that recognized their species had stagnated, become enslaved to their own preservation protocols. They saw in humanity a potential they had lost, the drive to evolve, to transcend limitations. Together, we developed Project Ascension. Stop talking in riddles, James snapped. What exactly was Project Ascension? The facility trembled slightly as massive hidden machines activated deep below. Humanity faced a choice: fight a war we couldn't win, or transform ourselves into something that could bypass the precursor protocols entirely. The stasis pods weren't meant for mere preservation, they were chrysalises. Thera's scientific mind raced ahead to the implications. You're saying humanity didn't die out. They evolved? Over thousands of years, guided by Cedar biotechnology and powered by the quantum sensitivity in bloodlines like yours, Commander. Aria's voice held something like pride. The scattered pods were connected in a vast quantum network, allowing controlled mutation and adaptation across multiple dimensions. James leaned against a wall, overwhelmed. So what happened to them? Where did they go? Beyond, Aria said simply. Beyond physical form, beyond the constraints of spacetime that the precursor systems were designed to monitor. They seated themselves across reality itself, becoming something the precursors couldn't detect or control. "But you left me behind," James said quietly. "Why?" "Because humanity's transformation left a vacuum, one that younger species needed to fill. They needed guides, protectors who understood both what they were and what they could become. They needed a bridge between what humanity was and what it evolved into." Thera moved closer to James, her scaled hand finding his. "That's why you survived. Not just to preserve human knowledge, but to help guide species like mine when we reached the same crossroads humanity faced." "Indeed," Arya confirmed. "But there's more. The precursor systems are cyclical. They're becoming active again, turning their attention to species like the Viserians. That's why you were awakened now, Commander. Your genetic heritage gives you access to capabilities that even you don't yet understand." New holograms appeared, showing strange architectural forms that hurt the eyes to look at, precursor monitoring stations scattered across the galaxy. "With the proper training, you can perceive and interact with the quantum layers where both the precursor systems and evolved humanity operate. You can help disable the protocols before they trigger another purge." James straightened, his military bearing returning. "And if I refuse? If I don't want to be some kind of transdimensional traffic cop?" "Then the cycle continues. More civilizations will face the choice between destruction and desperate transformation. But I don't think you'll refuse. Not with so much at stake. Not with someone to protect." James glanced at Thera, seeing the wonder and determination in her alien features. He thought of her people, of all the species reaching for the stars, unaware of the choice that awaited them. "How long do we have?" "The precursor systems will fully activate in approximately 3 standard months. First, they'll assess. Then they'll begin isolating and eliminating civilizations they deem too advanced." Arya's voice softened. "I can begin your training immediately. The quantum sensitivity in your genes was enhanced by 50,000 years of stasis. You're more prepared than you know." Thera squeezed James's hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. My people deserve the right to choose their own path of evolution." James took a deep breath, feeling something stir in his genes, a sense of possibilities and dimensions he'd never noticed before. "Then we better get started. Humanity fought the precursors with weapons last time. Maybe this time we can fight them with understanding." "A wise choice," Arya said. "But be warned, the Academy forces hunting you aren't your only concern. Some of the Seeders who helped humanity evolve had competitors. They'll sense your awakening and seek to prevent you from interfering with the protocols." "Let them try," James said grimly. Humanity didn't survive and evolve by backing down from a fight. The facility hummed with power as ancient training systems activated. As James and Thera followed Arya deeper into Haven's Deep, neither of them noticed how the geometric patterns on the walls had begun to spiral in sync with their joint heartbeats, human and Viserian rhythms combining to create something entirely new. 2 months of intensive training had changed James in ways he still struggled to comprehend. He stood in Haven's Deep's quantum observation chamber, his consciousness extended into layers of reality invisible to normal human perception. Through these new senses, he could see the approaching precursor systems like vast geometric storms gathering at the edges of known space. "Their activation sequence is accelerating," he reported, his voice distant as he maintained his quantum focus. "We have 2 weeks at most before they begin full assessment protocols." Thera monitored his vital signs, her scaled fingers dancing across holographic displays. Over the past months, she'd become more than his anchor to conventional reality, she'd become his partner in every sense. "The Academy fleet is gathering too. They've almost traced our quantum signatures back to Haven's Deep." "Let them come," James said, slowly pulling his awareness back to normal spacetime. "They need to understand what they're really facing." He stumbled slightly as he fully returned, and Thera steadied him with practiced ease. The hostile Cedar factions are moving as well, Arya announced, her holographic form shimming into existence. They've already disabled 3 of the quantum beacons we need for the disruption sequence. James straightened, fighting off the disorientation that came with quantum sensing. Then we stick to the plan. Hit the primary precursor node before they can complete their assessment. With their hierarchy disrupted, individual systems will default to local control. You make it sound simple, Thera said, running a diagnostic on his neural patterns. Breach the most heavily defended precursor facility in the galaxy, reprogram protocols that have run for millions of years, and do it all before multiple hostile forces can stop us. James smiled, touching her scaled cheek gently. Humanity's greatest achievements usually started with impossible plans. Besides, we have something they don't, proof that evolution doesn't have to mean destruction. Their moment was interrupted by proximity alerts. 3 vessels had dropped out of hyperspace near the planetoid, Academy ships, but not the expected military vessels. Research ships, Thera said, surprised. That's the Science Council's personal fleet. They're hailing us. Put them through, James said, moving to stand beside her. The holographic display showed a distinguished-looking Viserion whose silver scales marked her as being from Thera's own clan. Dr. Val, the counselor said formally. Your messages about the precursor threat have been validated. Our deep space arrays have detected the energy signatures you described. We're here to help. Thera's scales rippled with emotion. Counselor, thank you. But there's so much you need to understand. Then help us understand quickly, the counselor replied. Because our models show the precursor systems reaching activation within 15 standard days, and we're detecting multiple unidentified vessels approaching from the galactic core. The hostile Cedars, James said grimly. They'll try to prevent us from interfering with the purge protocols. He turned to Arya's hologram. How many beacons do we need to trigger a cascade disruption? 5 functioning quantum beacons, properly aligned with the primary node, Arya replied. We have 2 secured here. The hostiles have destroyed 3. That leaves 3 still vulnerable. And we have to breach the primary node itself, Thera added. A facility that's been accumulating automated defenses for millions of years. James's expression hardened with determination. Then we split up. The Science Council ships can help protect the remaining beacons. Thera and I will take Haven's Deep's quantum runner and strike at the primary node. If we time it right, the hostile Cedars will have to divide their forces. A bold strategy, Arya observed. But the node facility's defenses were designed to stop conventional attacks, James finished. Not someone carrying the quantum-sensitized genes of humanity's pioneers, trained by the original Cedar protocols. And definitely not someone working in harmony with a species those protocols were never designed to account for. Thera met his gaze, understanding flowing between them. Over the past months, their deepening connection had begun manifesting in unexpected ways. Their quantum signatures had started synchronizing, creating possibilities that even Arya's vast databases couldn't fully explain. You're suggesting we attempt a dual-consciousness quantum breach, Thera said. It's theoretical, dangerous. And exactly the kind of impossible thing humanity specialized in, James replied with a hint of a smile. Evolution isn't just about changing form, it's about finding new ways to transcend limitations. Humanity proved that by becoming something beyond physical form. Maybe we can prove it again by showing that different species working together are stronger than any one species alone. The Science Council ships moved into defensive positions around Haven's Deep as James and Thera prepared the Quantum Runner, a sleek vessel designed to navigate the stranger regions of spacetime. Through his enhanced senses, James could feel the hostile Cedar ships approaching like gathering storms. You know, Thera said as they made final preparations, when I first found you in that stasis pod, I thought I was rescuing the last human. But really, you were rescuing us, weren't you? James shook his head. No. We're rescuing each other. Humanity's transformation showed one path beyond the precursor protocols. Maybe together we can find another, one that doesn't require leaving physical form behind. And if we fail? Then we fail together, fighting for something worth believing in. James reached out, taking her scaled hand in his. Ready to make some history, Dr. Val? Thera's scales flushed with chromatic patterns that James had learned meant deep emotion. Always, Commander Harrison. The quantum runner's engines hummed to life as the hostile ships emerged from hyperspace, twisted configurations of matter that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Behind them, the Science Council vessels moved to protect the quantum beacons. And far ahead, at the galaxy's core, the primary node waited, a facility older than Earth's oceans, guarding protocols that had shaped evolution for millions of years. As they accelerated into quantum space, James and Thera's consciousness began to synchronize, their shared connection transcending the barriers between species. Through their combined perception, they could see the strands of reality itself, and the possibility of reshaping them into something new. Humanity had chosen to evolve beyond physical form to escape the precursor protocols. But perhaps there was another way, not to escape the protocols, but to transform them. To take the precursor's desire for guided evolution and turn it into something that celebrated diversity instead of fearing it. The quantum runner pierced the veil between dimensions, carrying with it humanity's legacy and the promise of tomorrow. Behind them, Haven's Deep's ancient machines pulsed with power, broadcasting a message to both their allies and enemies. Evolution wasn't a ladder to be climbed, but a web to be woven. And in the space between heartbeats, human and alien together, a new future was about to be born.